Okay, council, I will call us to order. Welcome to your Tuesday, August 5th work session, and I will turn it over to Jay Chapa.
Good afternoon and welcome back from the summer break. Currently have no upcoming or recent events, organizational updates, so I'm going to move on to informal reports. The first informal report is the quarterly development activity report for the development department, and DJ Harrell's here to answer any questions. No questions. The next informal report is the June 2025 report on the release of area from the ETJ by petition of landowners and residents. DJ's here to answer that as well. Questions? The next is the informal report on the annual action plan for the use of federal housing and community development block grants, grant funds, and Casey Bess is here to answer this. Any questions related to this? No questions? Okay. The next IR is on the cost of graveling alleyways in the city. Dave Lewis from Park and Rec is here to answer any questions.
Yeah. Jay, you have one, too.
Sir.
Dave, where are you? Mr. Lewis, come to the podium, sir. I read the IR and occasionally get questions from constituents about alleyway improvements and what can be done and what are within our options. I know in the past, very few, if that, alleyways were paved over with some recycled or some surplus asphalt. Could you talk specifically a little bit about that and whether your staff looked at that option? How does it compare with gravel?
Sure. Good afternoon. I am actually not aware of that practice in the past, but I'm going to turn to maybe Debbie Branch.
Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying it was a practice. All I'm saying is that it had happened before, on a few alleyways that I know of.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. When taking over this program 3 years ago, TPW had been involved, and I think it's called flex base, and there may have been some flex base and gravel and alleyways, but that was definitely before Parks and Rec acquired the program.
And from a cost-effective standpoint, how does that compare with gravel?
I would assume it's comparable, but I don't. That was a Transportation Public Works, and I don't think it was part of their official program. I think it was more kind of, as you mentioned, kind of, oh, we've got this product, maybe just put it down on the side, but.
Okay. If you don't mind, can you look at that further and can get back to the council on that or with me? I'm just curious how it compares to gravel.
Yeah, we'll research that technique more and figure out what it would cost to do. And here we have pretty much a per alleyway cost. We could probably provide the same thing for that.
Using, recycled,
Sure.
asphalt. So,
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Dave. I'm looking at the IR and the amount. Is there a way, or are you guys able to give us a rollout plan? Maybe not because I know we don't have the manpower to do it all at once. So what does more of a rollout plan look like? Is that in here?
It is not, partially because we are not recommending doing this, even despite the cost, because we would have ongoing maintenance. Even if we did gravel, weed will grow through the gravel, so we'll have to continue to do the weed killing, tree trimming, and the illegal dump removal. So it's probably not an effective way to manage that anyways, but we certainly could put together a rollout plan.
Okay, not to put you on the spot, but you know how it goes. Is there a better way to mitigate this issue other than gravel?
We don't know. We're still looking at that because we would certainly like to figure out the best way to manage it as well. We've got roughly half of the alleyways in our city are in the program, so that means half that only get services on demand. So we certainly would like to find a way to make this more cost effective and lower maintenance. But we have no solutions at this point, but we're still looking at that because we would always like to find those efficiencies.
Okay, and I appreciate that because I think it's really important because I know on the south side, in the historic south side, the alleyways are one of the biggest issues there. And we have a lot of senior citizens who live there who's not able to mow the lawn, or cut the yard, or take care of the alleys. And we know when you have high grass, you get snakes and other insects that, can be a threat to the residents. So For me, coming up with a solution is top priority.
We'll continue to research that.
Any other questions for Dave? Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
The next IR is a FY25 recycling program update, and Jim Kiesel is here from Environmental Services to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am. Jim?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. So, yes, my question's on the last 3 years, since we are losing money on the recycling program. How do we evaluate the profitability moving forward for the next fiscal year? So it looks like we're going to lose, at least year to date, at least $400,000 in 2025. Is that right?
Yes, we budgeted over $2 million. The commodity market for recycling was a little bit better the first half of our fiscal year. It's declined a little bit the last couple months. So we're actually trending a little bit better than we budgeted, and that for that, we decreased our budget for recycling processing for FY26. We lowered it from our initial expectations because of that. Okay. But in terms of determining profitability, it's strictly commodity-based. As you saw in the IR, there were 2 years there, about 2.5 years, where we were doing really well, but we have not actually received revenue since, I believe, July of 2022.
Okay. And Jay, maybe this is a question for you, but when do we start
Right. And again, I think when you look at the overall life of the landfill and trying to preserve that, the subsidy to keep that out of the landfill is actually a net positive. We can put together a whole analysis on that and bring back if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Thank you.
Councilor Beck.
I was going to ask that when you did that analysis, that you take into account the savings on our landfill and the cost of a new one.
Yes.
And that's probably hard to annualize, but
They have ways to do it. They've got some amazing spreadsheets. Seen them.
Thank you.
I'll stand up here since I've got next on the next one too, so in case there's
The
any
next one's a
questions.
neighborhood traffic calming program overview.
I've got waste management as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
skipped
up
over.
to waste
Waste management service levels for residential solid waste.
I think it's healthy to
can
kind of
you-
walk through this, please. Thank you. Councilmember Peoples.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you to talk to us a little bit about customer service. Since coming in office, that I have gotten at least 3 complaints about missed collections. And can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to improve customer service?
Sure. So as most of the council's aware, WM took over all of the city's residential routes effective December 9th of last year. They took them over from the MBE contractor, KWS. And as part of that, WM also acquired the vehicles from KWS. So they've been basically repairing those vehicles, getting those vehicles seaworthy effectively to put back into service. They're also working to modify some of the routes by lessening the home count on some of those routes. So we actually we have an operations call every day with Waste Management, or WM, to go over the operations daily. You'll see that I send out a report or an update every day around 3-ish, between 3 and 4. I also send one out every morning to let council and staff know of what's been left behind. We're working with them diligently to improve service. We have meetings set up next week with WM staff to go over service levels again.
Yeah. Well, thank you to you and your office for always being so responsive whenever we have issues. I know those emails that you send out, that certainly helps, especially preempt some of those calls or emails that we undoubtedly get every week regarding missed collections. But too, I really want to say thank you to Waste Management as well. So Mr. Keller, I see you out there, for being responsive to those residents who may have missed that 24-hour mark. And it'd be easy to say, nope, sorry, that's our policy. But still taking care of those customers. And too, you talked about taking over those routes. I have to say, I see it with the nicer trucks now, and I see a difference. And can you talk a little bit about the quality of life change for some of those previous employees, because they were offered jobs, and I understand many of them were offered starting bonuses to switch over from night to Waste Management. If I'm not mistaken, they all receive pay raises as well, correct?
I would actually defer that to Steve Keller. If he's from WM, he would maybe be able to answer that. I don't know the specifics on what those employees were offered.
Do you mind, Steve? Just briefly, please, I know we discussed it before with some of the quality of life issues from
Yes, sir.
previous employees. Can you just real briefly tell us about the job offers that were given to previous employees?
Yes, sir.
What they were possibly making then, around what they're making now, and those changes?
Well, first of all, I'm Steve Keller from Waste Management, Public Sector Government Affairs, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with y'all in this fantastic facility. I have worked with the city of Fort Worth for the last 24 years as the government affairs representative to the city, and I can tell y'all, and first of all, I want to say this. It is a monumental task that we undertake every day, and I'm not making excuses or whatever, but Council Lady, you said you've had 3 complaints. I understand that things happen out there. We had an incredible uphill battle to take over what we took over less than a year ago at the council's direction. And yes, sir, we offered jobs to all of the previous company that was having the serious issues taking place. We offered jobs to everybody that came. About 80% of their people came over. Part of the reason is that we have pretty stringent qualifications on, CDL and stuff like that. But to a person, and I have these conversations quite regularly with those folks that came over and transitioned into the WM lifestyle, they are thrilled with what they've got. No problem with payroll being met on a every other week basis. The benefits that they receive from the 401k to the incredible health insurance that they have, with us for their families. They are very excited and very happy to have made the transition over. We take great pride in our employees. We're all about our employees. Our drivers on the street is who we are out there. And those folks came over and have been very happy with doing so. Yes, sir, they did receive a bonus for coming over. They went through extensive training. They receive pay raises, and if y'all don't know this, if you know people that are looking for jobs out there, tell them to go get their CDL license and come with us, because there is such a shortage of drivers. We could not have made the transition without those folks. And so, Councilman, I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know the specifics of the percentages and stuff like that, but we were very, very pleased and happy to have incorporated most of the employees. They all had the opportunity to come over, and most of them did.
Awesome. It does. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for staff? Councilmember Peoples?
What's the average hourly wage for those drivers and those workers?
I don't know what the average is, Council Lady. It's kind of proprietary, but I know this, that we've had 3 pay increases in the last 15 months to our drivers. It is so competitive. Our drivers are the most important aspect of what we do out there. We do everything possible to keep them. And believe me, with the number of CDL jobs that are available, if they weren't happy with us, they can walk out the door and have a job immediately somewhere else. But we have a very, very high retention rate on our drivers. And I know it's north of 90% of the drivers that choose to stay.
Councilmember Peoples, I'm sure we can get you, Ms. Washington, if you don't mind giving us a general idea, that'd be helpful.
Get me that information, and also the retention rate information. Thank you.
Any other questions from
Yes, Mayor.
council? Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you very much, guys.
Before you leave the podium, just one thing. What can you tell us about, I know you've had some heavy equipment issues that, related to incomplete routes and missed routes.
Yes, sir.
I've spoken about that. Can you just give us a very brief update on that? I know you've been making some good headway.
When we took over the full collection, there was 30-something routes. Is that right, Jim? 30?
30 routes, that's correct.
30 routes. Getting 30 trucks is in a short order of time is impossible. The lead time on getting equipment is between 1.5 years and 2 years. It's the same for the city. If you need new police cars or whatever it is, there's such a difficult. But in our industry, it is very difficult. And so what we ended up doing was purchasing the 30 trucks from the previous subcontractor that was in there. Then we had to take all of those, and bring them up to WM standards. We actually ended up, so you know, we took all of their equipment to
Yeah, I was told Victoria, Texas.
Victoria, Texas, and we brought in our green team mechanics from all over the country that just did nothing but refurbish and recondition all those trucks. Now, it's been a slower process than we were hoping, but as those trucks meet standard, the WM standards, they're coming in. Then they go out on the streets, and it's a different thing from going from the mechanics yard out on the streets. That's where you find out what particular issues happen. So we've had some of that that's happened, council member. We're pleased that we are in the process of closing that specific location in Victoria where we've been working on these trucks for over a year now. And so those trucks are coming onto the streets right now.
All right.
Did that answer your question, sir?
Yes, that suffices. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, Councilman
Yes,
Nettles?
I have a couple questions. Can you give me more of a percentage amount of the collections that are still being outstanding, missed?
You're referring to missed collections specifically?
Yes, sir. Because I know we're still getting calls in our office.
That's correct. I would say, though, that right now we're trending at about a 99.5% success ratio. So you bear in mind, as Steve began to point out, the enormity of the collection of the city of Fort Worth. The contractor collects roughly 54,000 homes a day on average. So when we say that we're at a 99.5% success ratio, that's ballpark 1,300 to 1,400 missed collections a month on the trash side. So does that meet our overall standards? Probably not. We'd like to be less than 1 per 1,000 homes. But when you look at the enormity of the collection here, there's over 3 million collection services per month when you factor in bulk collection, recycling, and yard waste.
Yeah, and I understand, and I appreciate the empathy that you're showing today, but people still want their trash picked up. And, I mean, I understand what you're saying. And so I want to, I guess in the next 6 months or so, have another IR to come back, because I know that he articulated the trucks, getting them fixed and all that, what have you. And during this process, when we went through this process, it was a very egregious and rushed process. And so I'm a little concerned with a lot of the empathy that we're having today of the trash that we didn't have then. And so I want to make sure that we can make sure that every resident in the city of Fort Worth, I think we made this decision to make sure that every resident in Fort Worth can receive quality service. And I think that we're trending that way, but I want to make sure we continue that.
We agree too. That's our goal too in environmental services, to make sure that everyone receives that same service. And again, we work hard every day with WM to ensure it. We're doing our best, and we're trying to hold them accountable for collecting the trash on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Next IR is the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program overview, and Chelsea St. Louis is here from TPW to answer any questions.
I have a question. Hi, Chelsea. Question for you. I know you provided us with a number of speed cushion sets that were applied, and speed cushions reflect the majority of, traffic calming devices, that the city provides. What percentage of other traffic calming would you say off the top of your head aren't reflected or reported in these tables?
Well, really, I would say that 100% of the traffic calming has been speed cushions. We have proposed things like flex curb to create curb extensions to narrow crossing distances at intersections. We've proposed using the flex delineators to do some of that same work as well. Generally, neighborhoods have not been receptive to using those items because of the aesthetics. And so that's why we primarily use speed cushions.
Okay, and then my second question is, again, you report the number of speed cushion sets installed. How does that compare to the applications received. That is, we shouldn't assume that every application received resulted in
Correct.
cushions or tables, right?
Correct. So in the IR, over 2,000 people submitted requests related to speeding or traffic calming. And so the 79 that you see here were all of those that got filtered out, or we filtered down to the 79 you see here, either through the speed threshold that we outlined in the IR, pavement condition, because there are some locations where we recommend speed cushions, but at this time, the pavement condition doesn't allow that to happen. And then also the petition process. So there are applications that are received and we may recommend speed cushions, but requesters aren't able to secure the required 2/3 property owners to support.
Is that very many? I can't make that number of sign.
I wouldn't say we'd be able to really quantify that number right now because sometimes it just takes a long time to get the petitions. On average, we have some locations that have come back maybe 6 months to a year later saying we finally got all the residents or property owners on the streets who agree to the speed cushions. So it really depends.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Martinez and then Councilmember Nell.
Hey, Chelsea. Yeah, so I wanted to ask a question or a request in regards to the petition. We have a constituent who is disabled. In those type of situations, is there any way we can help them at least get mailers out if we can verify that they are disabled? Just like a general note card like we do with zoning requests, would that be something? And I know it's going to cost money to mail those, but you know they don't have an organized neighborhood association, or the neighborhood association isn't willing to help. So in those situations, I'd like to request that we consider that as another way to help those individuals who may, of course, there's the need for traffic calming, but there's no way for them to go and secure those signatures themselves.
That's something we can consider.
Councilmember Nettles.
Yes, I have a couple of questions, but because I asked for this IR because I had a couple of neighbors concerned about speed cushions. Or can you just give a quick overview of the application process or the petition process, what residents need to do? Because I guess it's at the residence him that needs to do it. And then I have a second question about when you go out and you survey the area and the street conditions are not up to standard, is council or the council representative notified so that we can work with TPW to get that street up to standard?
I'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
So usually we don't reach out to the council member related to the pavement condition. We work with our neighborhood streets team. So there have been instances where initially we informed the requester that we weren't able to install the speed cushions, and then later it's getting installed because it's on the schedule for our neighborhood streets to do pavement management on it. And then also, just in terms of our process, so the requesters submit the request through our My Fort Worth app or the call center. They also submit applications as well. They give us the list of streets where they would like to see speed cushions or they've observed a speeding issue. We perform speed data collection. Some of that data collection happens through our third-party vendor, so it takes some time to get that speed data back. We typically recommend speed cushions if the 85th percentile speed is 5 miles per hour or more over the posted speed limit. At that point, we notify the requester that that we would be recommending traffic calming for that particular street. And at that point, we actually provide the petition to the petitioner with all of the property owner information populated from TAD. And then the onus is on the requester to get that petition populated with all of the requisite signatures.
So in the My Forward app, is there an application where you just go in to submit for speed cushions, or you go in to submit for speeding first, and then it prompts you into the speed cushions?
So we have two different issue types.
Okay.
And that's why I broke it down in the IR. There's I think it's increased traffic speeding, and then there's also the traffic calming specific one as well. But we review the same team reviews all of those requests. So sometimes we actually have to kind of triage requests and make sure they go to the right place.
Okay, and I don't know if it's under this IR or your department, but such as I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Smith on Allen and New York that gets his mailbox or street knocked over every other week. And I think he submitted for either a light or a speed cushion there. If it needs to be escalated to a higher department, does your department escalate that? Because it's been going on for a couple of years.
We can look into that request. I think I may be familiar with that location. Some years ago, we may have installed an LED stop sign at New York and Allen.
At New York and Allen, because it curves and turns into Maddox. And that curve, for some reason, no one sees it and runs right into the smack of his neighbor, his house or mailbox.
So in addition to the traffic calming requests that we receive, we receive all of the neighborhood traffic safety requests or traffic safety requests in general for the whole city. Mm-hmm. And so that request, if it was related to installation of, let's say, a traffic signal, that may have gone to our traffic signal team to do the evaluation on that. But it's something we can follow up on.
Okay, I have one request. I don't know if others are having the same issue with speeding in their neighborhoods, but some departments we get like a annual 6-month bi-monthly notification of requests being made because a lot of times we don't recognize the issue until we go to the neighborhood association meetings, and by that time the neighborhoods are highly upset. And so if there is a way that we can kind of get some type of data every 6 months of speeding locations that are high priorities in the city of Fort Worth per districts.
That's something we can look into. One thing that I will say is that we do have some data about speeding. So there is the perception of speeding, and then there's the actual speeding. And so what I will say is we looked back at some of the speed data from fiscal year 23 and 24. Out of the almost 250 locations that we had our third-party vendor looked at, only about 20% of those came back showing that there is actually speeding as we define it. Okay. And so what we are looking to do moving forward with the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan that will be coming before you on August 19th is one of the action strategies in that plan looks at how we reduce speed limits, because even though technically there isn't speeding as we define it, what we do understand is that people think that 30 miles an hour is too fast for a residential street. And so taking that information, we want to look at how we can reduce speed limits on those local residential roadways where it makes sense.
Okay, and maybe scratch that by 6-month thing. Can we just get a presentation on it of what they have already recognized throughout the city of Fort Worth, and maybe that we can help understand?
I think what she's saying is they're going to have a presentation on the 19th of August.
So you will have a presentation on the 19th?
On the Vision Zero plan that talks about where all the areas of speeding.
Yeah. So the presentation will be on the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan, which we will be recommending for adoption. But in that plan, it outlines several strategies that we're going to be taking to address speed management, as well as other issues like truck traffic and some of the other safety issues that have been brought up by the community.
Councilman, we can.
But I kind of want to see the report of the 200 people who have submitted the applications.
Right, we can pull to see what the data is and see how often we can share it with the whole council.
Okay.
Across the city.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Martinez.
Sorry, Chelsea. I meant to ask, just for educational purposes, because this is a very common request, how long do you collect the data? And when you do those traffic calming studies, what days out of the week do you have those strips out there? Or how is data collected, essentially, and how long?
So it's typically a 24-hour count on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays to avoid any anomalies from beginning of the week on Mondays and Fridays. People leave for the weekend. We typically try to keep those counts to times when school is in session.
And why wouldn't you include at least like one weekend? Because, I feel like, I mean, they speed every, day throughout the week, but I feel like Sundays and Saturdays are probably a lot higher.
That's really just our standard practice. We usually look at normal traffic patterns, and so unless it's an area where the normal traffic is a special event, we wouldn't typically schedule things on the weekend. But for example, we have gotten requests related to speeding connected to places of worship, and so in those cases, we have collected data outside of those days that we prescribe. But it's really based on the context. So we can look at those things.
So 24 hours, Tuesday through Thursday, or Monday through Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. Tuesday through Thursday, okay.
Thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next IR is the proposed council-initiated zoning changes for properties south of I-30 to MU1, low-density mixed-use zoning district with the base overlay. And Lysandra Stringfellow's here to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Councilmember Crane, if you need anything on this one. Okay, thank you.
And that concludes our IRs.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Okay, council, we're going to move straight into any questions regarding membership on boards and commissions, questions on significant zoning cases, or the council M&C log. Anything on those? Okay. Our first up is a proposed economic development incentive with Adam Industries. Kelly Baggett, Economic Development Coordinator, and Michael Henning are going to present.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just going to kick this off, and then I'll turn it over to Kelly Baggett, our Innovation Coordinator and the Project Manager over this recruitment effort, to really dive into the details on this project. But the purpose of this presentation is to discuss a proposed economic development program agreement with Adam Industries. Adam Industries is developing new technologies and platforms for the prototyping and design of microelectronics and semiconductors. And they've been searching for a location to service their long-term headquarters, as well as the spot where they will be expanding their operations over several key phases. Now, kind of at the heart of their operations is the development of an electronics workbench, which can be used remotely over the cloud by their clients. Their clients would include many of the biggest names within the technology industry. And really what differentiates what Adam Industries does versus the existing industry practices is that by developing an electronic workbench at scale, as they're proposing, it allows for them to be able to provide certain efficiencies and really, at the end of the day, help their clients to develop chips faster with more flexibility, more energy efficiency, and then ultimately to be able to move through the development process on chips faster. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Kelly to really discuss what they're proposing for Fort Worth.
Thank you, Michael. This project will unfold in 4 phases centered on the development of a headquarters, an electronics prototyping lab, an electronics workbench, and a semiconductor fab for cloud-based users. The initial site will be at 4400 Alliance Gateway, sorry about that, with future phases to remain in Fort Worth. The company is proposing $229 million capital investment, with the bulk of the investment being in business personal property. They are also pursuing the Texas Semiconductor Investment Fund, as well as the NSF funding. Adam and the city are both part of the Texas Semiconductor Tech Hub. At full operation, the project is expected to deliver 267 jobs with an average salary of $91,000 and just over $16 million R&D expenditures, spending over 15 years. So as you know, Fort Worth has not historically been the creator in this space. Lockheed has more often, been the purchasers of this type of technology. So we're eager to pull more of it this way, and rather than seeing opportunities like this always land up in the eastern side of the Metroplex. We believe that this project will become one of Fort Worth's most significant semiconductor-related projects to date, and that's right alongside Wistron, which Council approved back in June.
And then just real quick, you're going to hear a lot of references in this presentation to commitments around R&D. We just wanted to go ahead and pause on this issue just for a moment, just to kind of walk through that a little bit and explain why that's such a priority for us. And so really what it comes down to is that even though there have been several notable exceptions, Lockheed Martin, Alcon, Bell, et cetera, at the end of the day, Fort Worth just really has not produced the level of R&D activity that you would expect for a city of our size. And that's been really one of the central, or one of the key priorities within our economic development strategic plan has been to try and recruit more of that activity here in Fort Worth. It doesn't obviously translate into any immediate fiscal benefits. We don't tax R&D activity, but it definitely translates into broader economic impact and can go a long way in helping us to recruit high-quality talent. R&D intensive projects tend to involve jobs that pay higher salaries, and really at the end of the day, it helps to boost the per capita GDP and helps us to drive growth in our target industry clusters, which is really core to our overall strategy.
So in terms of specific commitments, here's what the company is committed to deliver. At least $229 million capital investment, 260 jobs with an average annual salary of $91,000, and just over $243 million in R&D over the full project term. So this is a significant long-term commitment. Now, I'm not going to walk through this slide in detail, but you can see here we laid out specific milestones that the company will be required to meet over the life of the agreement. It starts with phase 1 in 2027, moving through to phase 4, which is targeted for completion by 2033. Each phase is tied to clear deliverables, and our incentive structure is fully performance-based. So now let me walk through a little bit of the proposed incentives and how they are structured. The incentives are capped at $15 million total, so that's a hard ceiling. The first 2 years are especially important, and that's when we'll use the EDIF grants. And this is actually a big reason why this company is choosing Fort Worth in the first place. The EDIF grants deliver value where it matters most, during the heavy R&D phase and the factory ramp up. Early stage semiconductor R&D prototyping is extremely capital intensive, and these early incentive support enables the company to de-risk that early period. So this structure delivers value in the early years, which is strategically important. And this incentive is entirely conditional. It requires full delivery of phases 1, 2, and 3. If those phases aren't delivered, the agreement is subject to clawback. Now, beyond the first 2 years, the bulk of the incentives, for the remaining 13 years of the agreement, they're more conventional structure, and the grants are based on incremental real and BPP M&O. And again, this is strict accountability. The company fails to meet its salary or job commitments, those annual grants are subject to a reduction or forfeiture. To sum everything up, here's a quick recap here on the left side for the major deal points. On the right side of the public, the proposed incentives total about $12.4 million lifetime value, or roughly $7.6 million in today's dollars. That amounts to 4.7% participation rate from the city. We're also looking at a 21-to-1 private-public ratio, which, as you all know, is a very strong return. And turning to the projected city tax revenues, as far as the total net new taxes or gross, we are estimating approximately $3.3 million over the term. That equates to $1.1 million in today's dollars. So I want to emphasize that these tax revenues are after the payment of incentives. And once the term ends, the city will receive the full project value.
So with that, Council, staff is recommending that that the city enter into a 15-year economic development program agreement to provide the grants as Kelly just outlined. The plan from here would be to bring an M&C forward for consideration at the August 12th meeting. And with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Michael or Kelly? No? Great. Thank you both for your hard work. We appreciate you. Okay, Council, next up is an update on police chief recruitment. Deanna Giordano is going to present.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the police chief search and kind of provide you with an overview, more specifically about the public process that is forthcoming. And so, Deanna Giordano, Assistant City Manager, I'll go over the summary of candidates that we received to date, which was very impressive, the next steps in the public process, and then just how we round out kind of the selection for the next police chief. So as you've heard, we had over 51 candidates apply for the role from 15 different states across the nation, which is very impressive. The caliber of talent that applied for this position had very valuable experience in the police industry in many, many years. We identified 4 of those candidates to advance to the finalist rounds. One of them withdrew and had a promotional opportunity in her home agency, with the remaining that are listed here that will be part of the public process and the other interview panels. And so I'll go through the names just in alphabetical order. Our own Chief Aldridge, who's the interim police chief for the city of Fort Worth. We have Chief Eddie Garcia and then Chief Vernon Hill, who are part of the candidate process. This was all based off a very competitive process that Mosaic's partners helped the city identify candidates for. The police chief, this is the important part that we wanted to share, make sure that mayor and council was aware, but more importantly, the public. We have the meet and greet and a public forum that will be hosted on the 14th of August. The information has been shared publicly since July the 15th, and so we've reached out with a press release to the media. The story was picked up by several of the media outlets. We also had a city news story as well as an e-newsletter that went out to the public. That's continuously being shared on all of our social media platforms so that we can generate interest and continued interest to ensure that we have good community representation here at the meet and greet in the public forum. There's also a QR code that was provided to individuals that allows members of our community to submit questions in advance, questions that they feel are compelling to ask each of the candidates. To date, I'll share with you, we've had over 43 participants, some of which have asked multiple questions by submission through that QR code. The QR code closes on August 8th, so that's coming up soon, and it closes at midnight, so there's still an opportunity for the public to submit questions that they'd like for the city of Fort Worth to ask during the public forum. It's going to be a packed day for the candidates on that day. So starting earlier that morning, we're going to have interview panels with the community and then also with the members of the police department. Following, here's the public process. We're going to have the meet and greet starting at 5:30 to 6:30. So it'll be an informal meet and greet. The candidates will be available here in the lobby area at New City Hall. They'll have an opportunity to engage with different members of the residents that show up to the event. In addition to that, immediately following, starting at 6:30 to 8, we're going to have a moderated panel in the City Council chambers. It will be live streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and the Fort Worth TV, and we'll also have Spanish translation for those individuals that may find that necessary. In addition, we'll also have attendees or participants that are watching online. They'll have an opportunity to send in feedback. There'll be another QR code so they can provide feedback on the candidates based on the meet and greet or the public forum that's going to be televised. That QR code will also remain available starting on the 14th during the actual activity or immediately following, and then close at midnight as well. And then following, we'll kind of wrap that up with the selection process. And so as I said, it's going to be a packed day on the 14th. They're going to start as early as 9 a.m. They're going to wrap it up with that public forum ending at 8 p.m. We have different panel members that are participating in 4 cross-functional panels. Following, the information and the feedback will be provided to the city manager on the 15th based on the information that's coming in from the public and based on feedback from the other interview panels. The city manager, in accordance with Chapter 143 of the Texas Government Code, will make a selection of the next police chief, present an offer, get into negotiations. We'll still have to go through background checks and initiate all of the other onboarding processes associated with the candidate before a resolution is presented to mayor and council to confirm the appointment of the next candidate. So as I said, I wanted to kind of just provide you with an overview of the police search process. It was an impressive list of candidates. I think the 3 finalists are impressive as well. And so it'll be a very competitive process as we continue through the police chief search. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Deanna. Questions from council? Councilmember Flores and then Councilmember Peoples. Councilmember Flores first. Go ahead. Councilmember Flores. Councilmember Flores is first, sorry. Go ahead, please, go ahead.
Go ahead, Deborah. Go ahead.
Okay, so Diana, thank you for giving us the briefing. But you talked about the interview panels, and there was a community interview panel. Have we picked all the people for that interview panel, and is that information available?
Yeah, so we have picked all of those panel members. We've invited several. Some, not all, could participate just given the time and the date, but many of them were able to. We don't typically divulge the panel makeup or the composition so that we can preserve the integrity of the process. We don't want any outside interference prior to or even following the selection of the process.
So it's too late to give you any more names. Is that what you're telling me?
Likely. And what I'll share with you is we have over 50 panelists that are participating in the process. And so it's a pretty good group of individuals. They're very diverse in nature, various backgrounds, from everywhere from internal to city manager's office to external community stakeholders. And so we try to have a very wide reach in community representation to be able to provide good feedback to the city manager.
Well, even if you can't give us names, is there some way you can give us some just generic information, like did we pick people from the district? I'd like to know if people were included from District 5. I mean, did we reach out to the clergy? What did, just some information so we'll kind of know, because people are asking me who's on the interview panel and want to know if people are included from our district, and I can't tell them anything.
I can certainly reach out to you directly and share information on district representation, and then I can assure you we did reach out to members of the different clergy community, and there are members that are represented on the panels.
Any other questions? Councilmember Flores?
Thank you, Mayor. Deanna, was there a staff-level discussion about the possibility of having a second forum? I know that the timeline is relatively short. Yeah. I'm curious to see if there was a discussion.
There was lots of discussion on just kind of what the candidate panel would look like, or particularly the public forum. We landed on the day panel, so we have the meet and greet immediately following by the public forum. It is a long process. Many of the candidates that are external to the city, or two of the candidates external to the city, have commitments in their current agencies, and so we needed to kind of be mindful of that as well. And so we landed on the 14th and the 15th being the 2 days where we would host those activities.
Okay, I see. Have you gotten outreach from either organizations or individuals on how they might submit questions if they couldn't be there in person during the forum?
Yes, if individuals cannot be there in the forum, and we want to make sure that that QR code, this is currently what's out on the social media sites and the media sites. This is the way in which individuals can submit compelling questions that they would like for the city of Fort Worth to ask. So if they cannot be in attendance, we would encourage them to use that QR code. It will be sent out again following this presentation so that individuals have an opportunity to provide input.
And let me better phrase my question. Have you gotten good response via that QR code?
So we've had over 43 participants providing multiple questions in some instances, not just a single question. And so we've got a good compilation of questions that will be used during the moderated forum.
I think Jay was going to add something here.
So we used this process the last time around because it was COVID, so we had to get the questions beforehand. And what we found is that all the questions fall within 10 or 12 categories, right? Because you only have an hour and a half. You can't ask 43 questions, for instance. And so the reason we close it at the end of this week is because then staff takes all those questions, figures out what categories they fall in, and then creates a question that covers those questions so that we can ask the individual candidates those questions and they can basically answer the questions that were provided versus having people just show up and then you just pick random people to ask questions when we now then have the population of questions beforehand and try to get as much of those completed in the hour, 15 minutes, and then their closing statements.
Yeah, and I'll share, just Jay mentioned it, this process is identical to the process, including the duration and the dates and times and the meet and greet that was used in the selection that rendered Chief Noakes.
Okay. Are we continuing doing the public outreach?
Panel that will be composed for the 15th.
Okay, so the 15th is only for basically staff and interview.
And that gives the community an opportunity to provide the feedback so that it can be shared on the 15th in advance of the interviews.
Okay, correct. So the 14th basically is going to be for the community and stakeholders. And you start on the presentation from 5:30 to 8 o'clock. But you also mentioned starting at 9 a.m. Can you walk me through that day again?
Yep, so the 9 a.m. is going to be a community stakeholder panel, and it's going to be it's going to be alongside a command staff panel or police panel with members of the POA, members of the community, various stakeholders. And so that morning, we'll start with those different panels and then carry into the meet and greet in the public forum.
Okay, when you say POA, you're talking about the only POA that we have meet and confer with, or are you talking about the Black POA, the Hispanic POA, and other members of POAs?
So the POA, the 3 POAs actually are all represented in that group.
Yes.
So they put a group together of representing the non-appointed group. So command staff is a portion of them, and then non-appointed group, and it includes folks from all 3 of the POAs.
Okay.
All inclusive.
I'm sorry?
It's all inclusive.
Okay, so each POA that represents here in Fort Worth is included in that?
Yes, sir. They're part of the panel.
Okay. So after the 9 a.m. meeting, Deanna?
Yes.
What's next after the 9 a.m. meeting?
No, it goes through because there's the 3 candidates, so they kind of route between both panels. Then they kind of wrap up, then go into the meet and greet, and then into the public forum.
Okay, so basically, and when do council meet with these candidates?
There's a special meet and greet for council on the day of the 14th, starting at 4:30 to 5:30. We didn't want that to coincide with the public, so there's a special invite that was sent to mayor and council for 4:30 to 5:30.
Okay, yeah, I must have sent it when I was on the beach.
Be on your calendars.
But it's okay, we know now.
Is it not?
Yeah, I don't think any of us got that invite.
We'll make sure it gets on your calendar.
I know you was on the beach somewhere, Michael, but we got it now. All right. Some more questions for you. Mosaic, what's the name?
Mosaic.
Are they here?
Partners. They are not here today.
They are not here. Okay, because I have a question for them, so I guess I'll ask it to you.
Okay.
Somebody's here?
No, you can ask me.
Oh, okay. I saw you looking back there. Okay, so when we talk about the candidates, so since we're getting an update on the candidates, I know there was some discrepancy of a candidate applying after the deadline. Do you have any information on that? And what was the decision for our department? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, and so I'll share, and I know only from what I've read in kind of the media, but what I'll share is that when we met with Mosaic Public Partners at the onset of the recruitment, we made it very clear that we wanted consideration for all viable candidates to be presented to the city of Fort Worth. It was very publicly known that Chief Noakes was retiring, so we know that there would be interest prior to the job posting going up and potentially really close after. So we did not have a hard deadline. There was not a deadline like you would see in a normal, maybe individual contributor role. It was an encouragement to apply before a certain date with consideration still be given to candidates, particularly those that would be viable candidates for this role. And so that process worked just as we expected, and we were presented with the full list of candidates.
So Mosaic, thank you. And they're not here today, so we really can't get the real answer from them. But they did not have a confirmed deadline, which was articulated as the 4th or the 5th. I can't remember.
And I can read you the language that was on the job posting or the advertisement, because the language that was written there was very consistent with what the city established them to present. And it was basically that all qualified candidates were strongly encouraged to submit a resume before June the 4th. Typically, when there's a hard deadline, it is an established deadline. It is you will submit or you will be required to submit. This was a strongly encouraged so that we could make sure that we're still attracting individuals. When you deal with these executive recruitments, we know that we're attracting individuals that are currently employed, and they have to manage that, their commitment to their home agencies while pursuing opportunities like this great position here in the city of Fort Worth. And so we recognize that, and so that was part of the discussion that we had with Mosaic at the onset of the process.
Okay, did the firm reach out to the city of Fort Worth after the deadline to see if we should receive the additional application?
So we never received the deadlines immediately. We never received applications on June 4th. Like that didn't occur because they're still vetting the candidates.
Right.
So
Deanna, I'm
in
not trying to
terms
be.
of them telling us that they had another candidate for consideration, yes, they did share that with us.
Mayor, if I could, Councilman, we had this conversation.
We did, but I want to ask it publicly because.
And so I'd like to answer publicly.
Sure.
So we had this conversation. And I sent you the advertisement because
I have it pulled up.
That had the language that said they are strongly encouraged. And I explained that we were allowing folks to apply because when we started the application process in April, we didn't have a firm date of when we were going to be able to put everybody together to meet to vet the applicants. We knew it was going to be in June. We knew we had a lot of things going on, and so we put the 4th as strongly encouraged, and we told Mosaic that we would accept applicants until we started vetting those applications. Mr. Garcia's application, and it's really a submittal of his interest, came in before the date we started vetting those applications, which was the 16th of June. So there was not a hard deadline. There was no special treatment. There was nothing like that in mind. We had this conversation. I thought since you want to make it public, I'd like to explain it publicly on what the process was.
Right, and I appreciate that, Jay, and I actually have it pulled up. And I have not once said that there was special treatment. I didn't say it on the news, and I haven't said it here today.
Well, it was reported that way.
Well, I can't control the way the news reports things, but I can control what I say. And so I'm going to say publicly that during this process, we hired a firm to do the search and to bring us qualified candidates, and I think they did that. And whether or not we told them that there is a strong deadline or there's not a deadline, they're going to present us candidates. Once they present us candidates, then we would do our process. That's normally how it goes. That's how we went through the process when we hired you. But what I have noticed in this process is that after the unconfirmed or whatever date that was set, Mr. Garcia had interest in the job. Mosaic then contacted the city of Fort Worth to ask for permission to allow him to apply. We, the city of Fort Worth, being you or Deanna, gave permission to allow him to apply at whatever date that was because we haven't started reviewing the applications.
Right, it wasn't permission. They notified us that they had an additional candidate that was interested in applying.
Right.
And we told them, per our process, if we haven't started vetting it, you can accept that application. So
Right.
It wasn't a change, and it wasn't permission. They were just letting us know.
Okay. So, and as I stated to you in our meeting, excuse me, for me, it's about how things look when it comes to the community. And we had a tough hire in January, but we hired you, and I feel confident that you are able to do the job, and I told you that. I don't have no bad will about that. And I think it was perspective that we should make sure that it is a transparent process throughout the process. In our community, people have called and said they don't feel like this process was transparent because one applicant filed or applied after, a deadline or no deadline. So I'm just, in the future, because we are already here, that we should set hard deadlines. Because I truly believe that if I want to run for office, I can't sign up in Jeanette's office 2 weeks later or a week later and say, hey, I want to be a council member. And she's going to call y'all and say, y'all want Chris? No, we don't. And they're not going to accept my application. And so,
we'll look into doing that going forward.
And I understand the executive hire. I get what you're saying, but
at the end of the day, as a city manager, I want to be able to hire the best police chief in the country for our position. And so, in this case where we had the recommended date, and we knew until we started vetting, we were going to be accepting applications. The fact that he ended up being one of the four finalists. Nobody in the group that vetted that had ever met him or knows Mr. Garcia. We met him in the interview process. So there's nothing there that it seems like people in social media and on the news try to make out of it. All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, why would we be interested in limiting the pool of the best applicants in the country? That's what I just don't understand.
Well, I think
maybe based on some other reason, right? Because it doesn't make sense. At this point, we got 3 great applicants. We're going to finalize the process. We know who they are now. Everybody knows who they are now, and we're going to finalize the process. And what we feel is the best applicant will be selected. It's who I'll be selecting. So
I appreciate that. And I wrap up my comments is it makes sense to me because I represent a community of diversity who want as well as the best chief. And I think if the best chief that we get should at least apply on time or the deadline or have his application in early. Nevertheless, not to say he's good or not. So as we move forward in this recommendation, I implore all of our communities to come out and make sure you talk to each one of them so that you can know what your desire is as a police chief. And I hope and pray, and I believe we have the finest staff here that will vet these candidates 100%. I'm just concerned about perspective, and I think the city of Fort Worth needs to be concerned about how we present things to our community to make sure that they know that we have their best interests at heart and not a single interest. And I think that we need to be more clear on what newspapers are, what media that we should be listening to. Because when the Dallas Express says the things that they say, it puts us in a bad light. And I think that the Fort Worth Star-Telegram is our newspaper on record, if that's correct. And so I don't know if people are watching that if you want to make sure you have more accurate and correct information, you should be looking at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and not other news outlets that will articulate things that we're now having a heated discussion about. I don't know if it's even heated because nobody's really upset, but it's just a discussion.
Yeah, very true, Councilman Knowles. Any other questions or comments for Deanna or the team?
Well, my only comment is I'm glad we had this discussion while it was lengthy because I think this needed to happen, and it needed to happen publicly. We have 3 great candidates, and I want to be sure that we are not prejudicing the air about any of the 3, because I want all 3 to be given the same priority when they get interviewed, because I think that's very important. And I do want the public to come out. Diana, I would suggest that you put the QR code on that flyer, and so it can be redistributed. I just went to it, and I had to go to it 3 times before I got through. So I don't know if it's if it's here, here in the chamber, but I would suggest that we resend that out. But I think, Chris, thank you for bringing it up. I think that was good discussion because it needed to happen publicly because people needed to hear the whole rationale behind everything that happened.
We'll make sure we get the flyer updated, and we'll close on Be Here August 14th, 5:30 to 8:30 to have public input.
Thank you, Deanna.
And 4:30 for council.
Yeah, 4:30. That seems like we need to make sure that's on everybody's calendars. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Deanna, as usual, you and your team do such a great job. We appreciate you. Update on proposed 2026 bond program. Christiane Simmons, Fort Worth Lab Chief Transformation Officer, is here.
So, Christiane and Mayor, before we get going, I think I asked the last time we were here and the bond program came up, and I know you're going to cover it. I wanted to see what happened in the last bond program with District 5. So I was told District 5 got a lot in the last bond program, and I want to be sure I'm not screaming loudly to the wind. So that's a to-do, if you can get me the information on the last bond program.
We can do that. Oh. Right. Afternoon, Mayor and Council. Christiane Simmons, Fort Worth Lab. Glad to be back with you after the summer July break. So yes, Councilmember Peoples will follow up on that. I'm here to provide a brief update on where we are in the 2026 bond program, facilitate conversation as needed. We really just want to say again, appreciate the engagement that's happened really back to April 1st when we first presented the proposed bond program. We've had a number of work sessions since then. We're at the point in...
Sorry to interrupt you. What is it that you just passed out?
Oh, hi. Yeah, that is the updated 2026 list. So it's almost the exact same as the June list, but just in case you need it. There is a minor change, which we'll go over today.
Thank you.
Thanks for reminding me. We're at the point, really, and you know this, that we're looking to finalize the proposed list so that we can turn to the public and start to get their feedback and input. I know we all agree that that's a really important step. So most of my remarks today are going to be reminders, like post-break reminders of where we stand, sprinkled with a couple of updates, and then we'll look forward at public engagement. So you have seen this slide before. Most of you. This is our total bond asks. These were submitted by departments really over the last 12 to 18 months. They're organized by department, not necessarily by proposition, so this is really the only place you see them organized by department. But this is really just a context setter for the total universe of requests, so $2.42 billion requested across all departments as the Fort Worth Lab began intaking those requests, again, like at this point, about 18 months ago. So really this is a repeat of what you saw in June, but has today's date. When we last presented in June, we were working from a projected bond capacity of $800 million. This is how that $800 million was broken out by proposition and percentage of the total. So Proposition A, streets and mobility, primarily derived from TPW. Transportation and Public Works and their capital needs, Proposition B from Parks, and so on. And so you can see the comparison here of proposed ratio compared to the average of the last two bond cycles per proposition. So TPW, aka Streets and Mobility, really getting the lion's share, followed by Parks, and so forth. And we talked in previous work sessions about sort of Proposition E, the big difference there, taking up some of the capacity with the new animal shelter. So this is one of my minor updates. This is sort of by way of follow-up. A couple of you at least asked about whether we compared the Fort Worth ISD closure list for the school safety project. So this is a follow-up on that comparison. You were correct in assuming that maybe some projects would shift. So you can see on the left-hand side the old projects. With the asterisk, those are schools that are closing in the plan. So we've removed those projects and shifted. So you'll see a couple of them, Charles Nash, Day Zavala, and Kirkpatrick removed, and now Forest Oak, Monig, Riverside, and Rosemont appearing as the next highest school safety
I think
priorities.
it was Councilmember Beck that brought that up.
Yes.
Save, because there's quite a few differences there.
Yes, really good feedback, Councilmember Beck. Thank you for asking that question. All right, and so inclusive of those changes, here's the latest map of proposed projects across the city. So you can see in the legend, a number of signals across the city with the little maroon, signal icon, red crosses for intersections, tiny trees for parks, sort of where those projects split out. You'll notice like longer roads in the north, some of the major arterial projects, but this is just that map that you're familiar with by now of how the projects split. And then you'll likely recall that in previous work sessions, we researched at your request what other funding scenarios might look like in order to get streets and mobility up to 65%, which was a little more in line with what we've done in the past. So we talked before about some potential trade-offs, referencing that to get streets up by 5%, we'd need to reduce $40 million from other propositions. And so we talked about, where some of that would come from. Of course, the obvious look is parks as the next biggest category. And so this is just a reminder of sort of what some of that looked like. But again, at the bottom, $40 million from other propositions to boost Proposition A.
Christiane, I don't see on any of these propositions any money for housing. Has there been any discussion about adding that and where that comes from?
Discussion, yes. The only place we've shown it to this point is in that supplemental list that we take to the public to sort of get their feedback on. Right now, there's not an affordable housing or a permanent supportive housing proposition in the proposed bond program.
I'd like to see that one makes it into the proposed bond program. So I think we can start with something small, like $5 million. $10 million is obviously preferable, but I'd like to see that included in the package and how that impacts everything else.
Any other feedback from council? Councilmember Flores?
Yeah. Not on this, Christiane. Councilmember Crane and I were looking at this back on page 7, where you have updates to school safety projects. Sorry to turn you back. I just want clarification on this. On the, yeah. Okay.
Oh, are you talking about my 3 and 2 typo? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Caught it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Now we're good. Thank you.
Good. Eagle eyes over there. Okay, so we can talk more to the housing point about what some of those trade-offs might look like, and this might be a good segue for that. So this is like my big update of the day, breaking news. Update on bond capacity. So obviously over the July break, we got values from the appraisal districts. And so this is a preview, a little bit of what you'll hear also in the budget presentation when we give that next week. But we did receive certified values on July 25th, and the growth in values exceeded our projections. And so all through, yes, clap, yay. April through July, we were kind of telling you, hey, don't forget, we're probably going to have to reduce the bond capacity. And instead we're here saying, hey, we're going to increase the bond capacity, maintaining the debt rate. But because the values are up, we can push it to $840 million. So that's an additional $40 million. And that in turn, of course, leads us to ask, okay, well, what do we do with the 40? So per my previous slide where we were really trying to boost Proposition A, we recommend putting the 40 into Proposition A. And the recommendation sort of on the table for discussion is to split that 40 million evenly between bridges and then minor roadway reconstruction, so not major arterials, but the neighborhood streets category as prioritized by TPW. On the bridge side, you know, between both federal and state infrastructure funding being really at historic levels, hundreds of $1 million available in leverage, we almost always need local match for that, so that, you know, local bond dollars there would really enable us to be competitive on a lot of those bridge infrastructure projects. And then again, with the other 20 million in neighborhood streets, we feel like we have major arterial needs covered in various areas, right? And so this would additionally fund, I think, anywhere from like maybe 3 to 6 more neighborhood contracts on the street side.
Councilmember Hill.
Christiane, since we're reopening the conversation again, can we get the list circulated of all the, I guess, Tier 1 roadways that we did not include?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. And then I had a question too on the sheet you just handed out on the new animal control center. The number's 58 million, and we had 59. I was just curious on, was it a typo or just we reduced it for some reason?
I actually don't know. I don't think we changed anything. Oh, Brian's 59. And it says 58 on your list?
Yes.
58.7.
We're trying to short you by
I know, don't short me.
300,000.
Brian needs all the money.
Okay, that must have been Brian's salary reducing. Just kidding.
It's a lot of animals. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for catching it. We'll take a look.
Hey, Christiane, on Councilmember Hill's reminded me of something that I don't think I've acted on yet.
Okay.
Has staff explored any possible partnerships with either agencies or nearby cities on the new animal shelter? You smile like maybe knowing.
Who would like to talk about
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's been some discussions with private sector folks that would want to participate. And I think this number, the original request was to get a facility that's larger than the current facility or can house more, but that was like $90 million. So it got shrunk down to where it is now to at least replace the older facility. But there's some discussions going on about maybe having private entities donate to make that a larger facility.
And I think you asked, though, about public sector, so maybe some other municipalities also, whether they're not. I don't know, Brian, if you could speak to
I'm
that.
not familiar with that piece, but Brian might be.
Here comes Brian. He's sneaking up on you, Christiane.
Repeat it one more time. My apologies. I heard bits.
Have you been working with other cities possibly about co-location or partnership on our new facility? And if you haven't, maybe we should help do that.
Yeah, we've toured some other facilities, and we've also looked at different partnerships, not just with other cities, but with like Operation Kindness and Best Friends and stuff like that. We're still in the kind of beginning phases of how we want to organize, that split, or if there's something like that. But I did want to add is while we reduced the size, because, it did go from 97 down to 60, the layout that we're picking is available for expansion. It's going to be just like the North Campus with different pods. So when that intake increases and we need to expand, it's available for expansion in a much more feasible way going forward than they kind of expanded Silcox, where it was piecemealed here and there. This will be just an additional pod, which is greater for the animals, it's greater for disease mitigation, and it's the ideal model. So.
Okay. Not to belabor the point, and we can talk about this, later, but we'll talk. So, thank you.
Okay. Christine.
Councilor Peoples.
Yes.
Yay on Ted. Thank you for giving us the other 40 million. But you had given us a sheet, and I don't have it in my binder, where we had things that drop below the line. So I'd kind of like to know what's going in, what we can pick up with that 40 million for TPW. And I don't, you might have that slide with you.
So on the bridges piece, what we were recommending is that those 20 million be available to leverage other funds. So TxDOT had the state legislature passed about a $500 million bill to give TxDOT additional dollars for bridges and roadways. And so there's always a component of local match tied to that. And then there's federal funds as well. And then COG does the same thing. When they provide dollars for a project, especially bridges, we typically don't have the local match. And so we wanted to use that 20 million to be able to have a local match to be able to capture some of those dollars. It'd be to either, when there's a bridge needed over a new road, we'll be able to actually ask for the TxDOT grant to cover it. And then we would just put in our 2 million. If it's a $10 million grant, then we put our 2 million of local dollars out of there. And so that's what the recommendation. Well, they're all over the place. There's also railroad bridges, right? The railroads want us to separate land, and they'll ask for dollars associated with that. And then the other one's the minor roadway. But this would be the obvious, if you wanted to add a different category like housing or something else, this would be the obvious dollars to look at to be able to a portion of this to go toward that.
And I guess the same question would be for the minor roadway, neighborhood street reconstruction. You probably have a list of those streets that got added.
Correct.
Maybe in this
There's
list.
probably 5 or 6 that are next in line. Some are bigger than others, so they'll look at it to see which ones are in the worst shape. And like you said, it might be 5 packages, it might be 3 packages, and they're all in the inner city because it's the older parts of town.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is the same total. Oh, let me make a note about your list. On your list, you're going to see the 20 million as a bucket on your list since they're not itemized by contract yet, but we can get you what TPW's recommendation would be on that next 20 million. So this is proposed funding with that new capacity. So same chart, but you'll just see that the Proposition A total is increased by 40 million. And sadly, this is a math sadness, as many math things are. We thought, we'll add 40 million and we'll get to 65% in Proposition A, but of course you're dividing from a bigger number at 840 million, so it jumps TPW or Proposition A to 62% almost rounded, not 65, but does give them a nice chunk, and then you'll see the other percentages sort of shifting with that new division. Mm-hmm.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I know when you first brought the bond to us, one thing we really pushed y'all to do is to allocate more funding to the streets and mobility improvements. And I can see that you're really struggling with making sure that we get to that number and that we try to make sure that we're prioritizing transportation. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the hard work of staff and city manager support as well. Okay.
I have a question about
Councilor
that
Nettles?
Yes,
slide
go
right
ahead.
there. Thank you, Mayor. For Proposition B, Parks and Open Space, is there I guess we're not seeing the breakdown of each of these propositions today. We'll see that later.
The list ties to, so what's in front of you
Orange
is the
list.
detailed list, right? So parks and open space, you can, if you were to add all of those projects by category, that's the detail you have in.
The list you provided us today?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, and same it's really, except for those new two $20 million buckets, it's the same list that we've considered really, I think in both work sessions, both of our previous work sessions too, just with some minor shifting. But yes, parks and open space there in Proposition B, no change since last time.
And as a reminder, so she's going to go to the public portion next. We're asking that we be able to go out to the public. Remember, the council gets a second view of this once we go through that process to finalize the list. So there's additional, after we've gone through the public input, staff will provide feedback on things we really heard from the public that sometimes changes that list overall. And so there'll be another in December, basically, information provided to the city council to get to a final list. So you'll have another opportunity to make changes at that point as well.
Right. Yes, this list is not representative of what people would be voting on next May. This is just the list that we propose. And originally, and I think still, we are planning to take sort of that supplemental below the line list a couple of you have mentioned with, 10 or 12 more projects or something, just so that people didn't think it was fully baked, but that they have some projects to weigh in on, as we're sort of chatting with them out in October. So that gets us to, Jay's covered some of this, but we're hoping to start online engagement really immediately with some of the tools I've showed before. I'll show you again a preview in a moment. And again, we'd showcase a larger bond list just so that the public has, more to look at. And then the plan would be that in October, once the budget's adopted and we can sort of shift gears into bond without confusing budget and bond together as sort of two different topics, we would do hybrid community engagement meetings in each council district along with comprehensive plan engagement, because comprehensive plan and bond should really flow together. So we'd like to marry those together through October since the timing works on the 2050 plan. And then we'd come back to you at the end of the calendar year and say, here's the feedback we've received, and obviously you'll know a lot of that too. And then we'd finalize the list so that you can call the election in January. Then we do another round of public engagement, but this time it's an education effort, right? Because now we're saying, here's what you'll be voting on, not what do you want to be voting on. So that's kind of the two phases. And if we were able to start digital engagement right away, we're really using two primary tools. One's Balancing Act, which is really a fun tool. There's kind of a live demo if you can see the screen. But residents can enter their zip code. That's how we kind of know where they are in order to tabulate who's participating. And then they can play with the 804, it's still at 800 right now, but 840 million. Kind of check projects and even submit other projects that they may not see on the list, and that way they can kind of go through that balancing exercise, kind of what staff goes through and what you go through when we're trying to build a bond program, and then they can submit it and we're able to tabulate that behind the scenes as feedback. And then the other project or tool, which is really my favorite tool, is ArcGIS story maps. And in this case, another live demo on your screen, they'll see the proposition list and they can submit feedback through the email or through submission in this exercise. Balancing Act is built into it. My favorite part of this tool is that they can very easily search the map. And so there's the map, and they can move it around. They can go by council district, and then you can click into each icon and see what the project is, how much it is, pictures, the scope, all of that kind of thing. So it's really nice if you can't even make it out to a meeting even in October. You can really kind of get a sense of what we're looking at with pictures that were taken by staff. And again, that doesn't replace in-person engagement. That's just additional tools. Okay, so that is the end of my briefing. That wasn't as brief as I was hoping to brief you, but happy to facilitate any conversation or answer questions, concerns at this stage.
Questions, or Councilmember Crane?
Just that website you have, is it live now? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Connor, is it live now? Yes, it's live now. So we'll get it pushed out on Connect Fort Worth and all those places.
Any questions? Councilor Nettles?
Thank you. So to Councilwoman Beck's concern, because I think it was on, you said the supplemental list. I think it was on that list, one of the top things for the housing.
Yes, it was at the top of the list for all those times we showed it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Will go out to the public as discussion as well?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay, because I'm really concerned if we're not actually talking about some of the things that council is concerned about to the public, then we won't get the feedback that we need as it relates to housing. And, you know, I don't want to go down the long laundry list, but cities such as San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, and other cities have all did housing bonds. And one of the reasons why it's so important is when we have housing projects, and I'm talking developers coming in, and they're not able to meet up to the funding mechanism because of they're trying to make it affordable. A couple of projects in my district had to seek money from the city as well as Tarrant County, and we know Tarrant County is making a major shift in their funding. So it's going to be important that the city of Fort Worth stands strong in supporting housing. And so one of my questions to you is, in these propositions that you have up here, would housing go into one of those propositions? Would it be its own proposition as voting?
It would be a standalone proposition.
And so I know some of the council has some concerns about putting a housing bond on there, what some voters wouldn't vote for. But if it's own proposition, I think that should give some heartburn taken away, that if people are going to vote for it, they're going to vote for it. But I definitely think that we should have some type of housing bond. I would actually like an update on maybe from neighborhood services of how many times that we have received inquiries of housing support to make sure that we have that, make sure that project happens in certain districts.
Okay.
And maybe along those lines, because when we go out to the public, we don't want to create more confusion. So it would be important to Chris's question, because it would be its own proposition, to articulate that clearly so people can kind of react to that, see what the language is. I know poor Dennis is usually the one that gets tasked,
Yes.
you know, on all these propositions, and give some feedback. I don't know how you do it best in those public forums. You know, what would we give and take? It's probably easiest to look at that $40 million that we just added in, and it would maybe come from those dollars or from other propositions. But just my most important point there is just to give them a visual of that extra proposition and how that would look, so they don't get confused.
Should we reduce the bridges to 15 and put 5 million as a housing proposition, or, because you mentioned 5 million?
We can cut it however you want to cut it. I mean, there's 5 propositions on there now. So if you carved out 1 million from each proposition, you get to 5 there. You could take 5 away from one proposition and get there. I mean, I think my preference, I don't have a preference on where we take it from,
Right.
but that it be in there. And so I look to you, city manager, to tell us.
I was just thinking it's additive, so we wouldn't undo something that we've had on the list for a while.
And then importantly, as we have discussions with residents, you know, we'll just use housing as a good example because it's not here. What are the types of projects, to Councilman Reynolds' point, that we could fund? What's an example? Neighborhood services, in case he can kind of come up with a few theoretical examples that in the past, 6 months to a year, we might have used out of that bond dollar, so the public can kind of react to that as well. Councilmember Millersdorf.
So, to your point, Mayor, that is something I think would be incredibly important, is if we did add another prop to it, make sure that the community understands, would you rather see it here or in streets, or in parks, or somewhere else? Because I think if it's just thrown out there, here's these propositions, if they know it could go somewhere else, then I just want to make sure that's abundantly clear whenever it comes time.
They could all go someplace else. I mean, so why are we giving, if that's the case, then we need to go back and say, however much we took out of these other propositions when Christiane met our challenge of increasing transportation in works, TPW, then should we then, for transportation, tell people where those additional dollars came from? Because really, that's just setting an unfair marker for housing. It's setting it up for failure, because it says, well, you could have it someplace else. Personally, I could have, TPW we could take the $5 million, $10 million from there. So I don't know that that's particularly helpful. In fact, I think it does more harm than good.
The good thing is, those of you, many of you around the table have sat through many of these bond discussions with members of the public in every council district. The good thing is, too, each of you can kind of also help advise staff on how you want them set up. But typically, people are pretty well informed, and they have a conversation with staff on where their most priorities are. Some people come like they only care about streets, they only care about parks, but it will be helpful, I think, for neighborhood services to help also be prepared to educate the public on where affordable housing, and really, let's be honest, the whole entire state of Texas is grappling with this issue, and every community is kind of tackling it differently. So we may just need to think about an education piece that would be unique for this bond that we haven't had to do before. So just a suggestion. Councilmember Hill, did you have something? No? I saw a hand, maybe I didn't. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Christiane, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
She what? You glad? Yeah. She's good. Okay, council, we have future agenda items or reports on the agenda. Councilmember Beck, go first.
So a while back, we had tasked staff with creating a door-to-door salesman registry and our registration process and program, and so I'd like to get an update on that. Also, not all things that came out of the Texas legislature this session were bad. One of the good ones was SB 304, which allows municipalities by ordinance to adopt an ordinance that allows civil jurisdiction for our municipal courts for dangerous structures and junked vehicles, and also jurisdiction over municipal health and safety codes. So that law doesn't go into effect until September 1. So what I would like to see is for next budget cycle, an ordinance in place, adopting this so that our municipal courts can now handle our nuisance abatement. The speed in which we are able to help residents, bringing it in-house versus our district courts, I think will go a long way to help our residents that often get frustrated by how long that nuisance abatement process takes. And so for next cycle, what that looks like for our municipal courts department, and have legal draft that ordinance.
Other items from council members? Yes, Councilmember Larsdorf.
A while back, Councilwoman Beck, she had asked for an IR. I don't know if you ever got it, or forgive me if we did, but it was related to vape shops and what we were doing to be more proactive with any potential legislation going forward. I know in District 4, our zoning commissioner actually pulled all the vape shops, and nearly half of them were actually opened under what seems to be false pretenses, under just commercial, not just actual smoke shop. So that does concern me with what she brought up before, with what we could do proactively, to where if there was legislation that did change overnight, what are we doing to protect ourselves and our communities? So if we could just revisit that IR from.
Well, and it may be, I don't know about y'all, but maybe it would be helpful to do it in a full presentation, have some dialogue back and forth with data from each of your districts, because you're right, they have popped up exponentially in the last several years across the city, so.
They are in preparation of legalization, which is why I want us to get out in front of it. I'm okay having a vape shop certain places, but I don't know that I want a dispensary where
they are now.
Yeah.
Okay. Good feedback. Any other future agenda items from council?
I just have one here. An exchange back and forth with the constituent. We're now sending out about water usage and enforcement, and some good questions here. It was an HOA. They had some requirements, and the HOAs can give advance notification. The contractors can. But I think everybody would like to know this too, probably about, does the advance notification, how does that work, and does it result in optimized water usage? They did not do that because they didn't know about it, and they had thousands of dollars in charges, and we had to go waive them later after they went through the process. But maybe that's part of a notification that we can give. Is the Water Conservation Group ready to handle the potential volume of these notifications, and are the advance notification processes sufficiently documented so customers and landscape irrigation contractors can understand what is required?
We'll get you an answer.
Councilmember Flores.
All right. Leanne, you might want to listen to this because I don't know if it's premature. I know your staff is working on it. But whenever they're ready, I'd like a briefing on the habitual nuisance ordinance. I think could be an additional tool that we're hoping to help us take care of those properties that, just have repeated offenses occurring. It's becoming more of a problem.
Councilmember Nettles?
Yes, question, IR on overgrown grass that is impeded on the roadway, such as like back roads, Oak Grove, trees are falling onto the roadways. How is that a priority to get fixed and corrected? It's a hazard. The second thing is I've received a couple of notifications from residents receiving a letter from the water department about maybe bills that wasn't rectified 10 or 15 years ago and added to their now current bill. And I actually have a letter from one of them from like an old account number and saying they need to pay that bill in conjunction with their current bill. And it could be from the sums of maybe $200 or $300. And lastly, I would like an IR and a discussion about mayor and council pay for the charter election for May. Is there a charter election in May? Oh, we can call one.
We'd have to call one.
We'll have to call one.
So maybe an open discussion about.
Open discussion, yeah.
Okay.
About charter.
The other ones from council. I have two. The first one is, and we can do this over looking at an IR or discussion about all of our attendance records at boards and commissions, but I'm most particularly concerned about Board of Adjustment, both commercial and residential. I know that staff and I have talked about this a little bit. There are going to be a few internal meetings. I think we can do this better. I think some of the items that are going for variances to BOA, both residential and commercial, actually should be coming to council because they're quite significant cases at times, and your council members deserve better say. Because as a reminder, they're quasi-judicial bodies, and oftentimes it gets your residents or commercial patrons stuck having to go to district court to appeal those, which is quite lengthy. So that would be one. But then overall, just where are we on attendance, quorum issues? Occasionally, as I'm sure you've heard, occasionally we don't have quorum at some of these meetings and it delays a zoning case, which I know it could be frustrating for y'all as well. The second one pertains to my desire to initiate a process to rename our South Division Patrol for Sergeant Billy Randolph, who of course died in the line of duty and spent his entire career there in South Fort Worth. I want us to look closely at what that would look like to initiate that quickly. As a reminder, the anniversary of his death is actually Tuesday, August 12th, so it's coming up very quickly. Secondly to that, I learned, and I have not heard this directly from Officer Nava's family, but I think they had also looked at maybe renaming a street or doing something and had gotten kind of gummed up in bureaucracy. So let's reinitiate that. I'm not sure what that request was, and just making sure we're working with our families of our fallen officers and fallen firefighters for that matter, and that when these issues come up, that this council can be of help where necessary. So,
We are working on that one. I've been talking
Great.
to Charlie about that for Officer Nava.
That's great news. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, council?
Okay, I
Yes,
would
Councilmember
like
Peoples?
for us to get Tara Perez back here and the homeless project that we talked about, the pilot that they did. Homelessness is really cropping up in my district, and I want to know, I know that when we did the pilot, District 5 was not included, but I want to know how we start operationalizing that project and the Project Hope. And then I'm glad you brought that up about naming the streets, because I have a street topper for an amazing citizen, Shirley Knox Benton, that got caught up in the whole process. I think the Officer Nava thing slowed it down, and so we need to have a better process for trying to make those things through. She's about 80, and I want to get it done before she leaves this earth. Okay.
Fair enough. That's good. Any other questions for council? Okay, if that, meeting is adjourned.